Welcome back, everyone. In Latin America, tensions are rising. Welcome back, everyone. In Latin America, tensions are rising between Venezuela and neighboring Guyana. It's over this chunk of land that you can see there in lines in orange and green. That's the Essequibo region, a potentially oil-rich territory, which is a part of Guyana. And this is not just a dot on a map, as you can see. This region makes up 2/3 of the country. Venezuela has claimed the land since the late 19th century, but President Nicolas Maduro has escalated this claim, announcing his move to take over the region. Have a listen.
Immediately, we'll proceed to give operating licenses for the exploration and exploitation of oil, gas, and mines in all our Guayana Esquiba.
Yesterday, Mr. Maduro is now showing his vision of a new map of Venezuela, including the disputed territory, saying all residents from the area would be granted Venezuelan nationality. Well, over the weekend, a referendum was held, as you know, where more than 95% of Venezuelan voters reportedly approved a new Venezuelan state in the region. Important that, you know, we take this with a pinch of salt in terms of the electoral results there coming from Venezuela. Well, across the border, Guyana is ringing alarm bells. President Irfaan calling this move by Maduro a, quote, direct threat to his country. Have a listen.
The measures announced are in blatant disregard of the order given by the International Court of Justice on December 1st, 2023. Guyana views this as an imminent threat to its territorial integrity and will intensify precautionary measures to safeguard its territory. We will not allow our territory to be violated, nor the development of our country to be stymied by this desperate threat.
And context here is important. Essequibo has been part of Guyana since 1899, when international law set the current boundaries, and Guyana was still a British colony. Venezuela has long sought to control the territory, and the discovery of the oil off Guyana's coast in 2015, as you can see there in that US field that we can point out in the dotted lines, has helped flame the current dispute. The International Court of Justice is now warning that Venezuela shouldn't take any action in Essequibo, but Venezuela says the court does not have authority to rule on it. Let's get more on all of this. President of Guyana, Irfaan joins me now. Mr. President, thank you very much for joining us this evening on the show. It is very clear from what we just played there, from your statement, that you see this as a direct threat to Guyana's territorial integrity as well as sovereignty. I wonder then what is being done, what conversations you're having with leaders in the region and beyond to stop Maduro from a border incursion.
Well, first of all, I'm very pleased to be here. The International Court of Justice, in its order, prohibited Venezuela from taking any action in relation to the questions in the referendum, which sought to annex Essequibo and to take certain administrative measures in relation to Essequibo. Venezuela went beyond yesterday, not only announcing measures that will annex Essequibo and take administrative measures, but they gave investors within the region 3 months to remove from this area, Essequibo, that is Guyana. So last night, we immediately contacted the United Nations Secretary General. This morning, we have officially written to the United Nations Security Council. As you know, Guyana is a law-abiding country. We believe in the international course of justice. That is why we're before the ICJ, and we believe the ICJ is where this controversy must be settled. But we are taking every precautionary measures against what is now a desperate attempt by Venezuela to seize our territory.
What are those precautionary measures, Mr. President?
So first, we're working at a diplomatic level. We have engaged a number of our allies and friends within the region in relation to defense cooperation. The Department of Defense of the United States and the Guyana Defense Force, they have a very elaborate cooperation pact. They're fully engaged on this matter. We're engaging State Department, we're engaging the White House. President Lula and myself had conversations. So CELAC, CARICOM, Commonwealth, and the OS, they're all engaged on this matter so that they can weigh in ensuring that Venezuela does not act in a reckless or adventurous manner.
In the last 24 hours, you mentioned this, Mr. President, you know, President Maduro put out a new map with his vision, right? His vision here of Venezuela, and that includes Essequibo as part of his vision. Have you seen, though, any signs, either militarily or from your intelligence, that Venezuela is preparing to annex Essequibo? Have you seen Venezuelan forces at all on the border?
So earlier in the month, we saw an increase in Venezuelan presence, military presence on the border. But what is concerning is the statement made by President Maduro to give effect to the questions in the referendum and in the establishment of a state of Essequibo, the issuing of ID cards, and the ultimatum. He's basically given an ultimatum to investors, which includes U.S. investors, Chinese investors, to remove from the region within 3 months. So
are they heeding that call, though? Are they heeding that call? What are you hearing from from those investors?
Well, we have made it very clear to the investors and to every Guyanese that Essequibo belongs to Guyana. In 1899, the borders were settled. Venezuela participated in the settlement of the border. When we were going to independence, they raised a controversy. That controversy is properly before the ICJ, and that is where it will be settled. So we have told our investors they have no fear. We are on the right side of history, the right side of the law, and there is absolutely no fear in investing in Essequibo, which belongs to Guyana.
We have also heard, we're talking about the region and what you're hearing, we've also heard from President Lula of Brazil, and he's calling for common sense. Those are his words. We've also heard from the U.S. State Department, Mr. President, you've seen that, calling for a peaceful resolution on the border dispute between Venezuela and Guyana. Do you feel that these comments go far enough? Do you think that the region is doing enough to denounce Maduro's provocation here?
So CARICOM has issued a very strong statement. The OAS has issued very strong statement. Commonwealth has issued very strong statement. We are working now with CELAC so that CELAC can issue a very strong statement. I think President Lula also sent a team into Venezuela to have discussions with President Maduro and his team. That team came back, and what we saw is that Brazil has increased their presence on their border with Venezuela. President Lula has given me assurance that Brazil stands strongly with Guyana, and that they would not see any reckless behavior by Venezuela. We are working now with SOUTHCOM, the Department of Defense, and State Department of the U.S., and hopefully within the next 24 hours, a lot of strong statements and strong communication to Venezuela will be released.
And context, Mr. President, I think it's important here because, just for our viewers who may not know, Venezuela has elections coming up soon. The opposition in the country is getting stronger. How much is this just political posturing or distraction? What have you been advised?
So this is one school of thought, that a lot of this has to do with the internal politics of Venezuela and President Maduro trying to distract from the internal politics. But that is Venezuela issue. What he is doing is creating a direct threat to Guyana and working towards creating instability in the region. And I think the U.S. ought to take this into consideration. We expect President Biden administration would look at the behavior of Venezuela in relation to the sanctions themselves.
Yeah, and that is a very important point. I also I think it's important to add that Russia and President Putin, as you well know, Mr. President, one of President Maduro's allies, given strong allies, and given what we have seen in Ukraine and the fact that Putin remains in the battle and potentially losing financial support, Ukraine's losing potentially financial support from the West or maybe waning, do you think that Putin's actions in Ukraine are enabling this?
And this is another school of thought that the Maduro is taking examples out of what occurred in Ukraine. But we believe that in this Western Hemisphere, we cannot allow a situation like Ukraine in this Western Hemisphere. We cannot allow the annexation of a territory in this Western Hemisphere. That would be something that we have never contemplated in this hemisphere and will disrupt the stability, the peace that we are known for within this hemisphere.
Mr. President, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Thank you very much, sir.